Welcome to the podcast, Let the Prophet Speak. Today we continue our study of the book of Judges with chapter 17, and we start reading the very sorry story of the Pesel, the image of Micah. This, of course, is a very sorry tale, a story that more than anything illustrates to us just how far the people sunk and how distant they are from the concepts and ideas that God tried to teach them, and how contrary this was to the entire purpose of them being given the land of Israel. So Vayehi Ish, we're going to just begin. The story really speaks for itself for the most part, and I'm going to make some observations as we go along, of course. Vayehi Ish Mehar Ephraim, there was a person from the Ephraim region. So Ephraim, again, a mountainous region, and it is the most important of what eventually later on in history will become the Northern Kingdom, the most prominent tribe of the ones that aligned themselves against Judah later on in history. So Ephraim was a very strong, prominent tribe. They figured several times in Judges. We've had them pop up here and there, but now we have Ushmo Micah. There was a man by the name was Micah. Literally, his name would translate Micah would to be who is like God. So Vayomer li'imo, and he said to his mother one day, Elaf umeah kesef, that 1,100 silver pieces, asher lukachlach, that was stolen from you, vi'at olis, and you made a shvua, you swore, v'gam amart bi'oznai, and you even and said it to me. In other words, apparently she had made some kind of a curse, cursing whoever it was that stole it. And you even told me, cursed be whoever stole it. Hinei hakesef iti. The money is with me. Ani lekachtiv. I stole it from you. Vatomer imo, and his mother said to him, Baruch b'ni l'Adonai, my son, may you be blessed to God. So here you have a case. It's a very awkward situation. Micah stole a huge sum of money from his mother. But apparently he had remorse. And his mother, of course, had cursed whoever it was that had taken it, and now she found out that her curse would lie upon her own son. So she says, no, may you be blessed. And she was happy that he confessed and he owned up to his sin. So this is a point where you could have something redeeming happen here. Maybe he recognizes that he did something wrong and then goes on a better path in life. But that's not exactly what happens. So what happens? Verse 3, Vayoshev es elef hameo kesef li'imo. This is good so far. He gives the money back to his mother. Vatomer imo. And then his mother says, Hakdesh hikdit dashti et kesef la'Adonai. I have, it sounds, I have, or I will, or I am. It's really past tense here. Hakdesh, I have already made it hegdesh. I have already consecrated this money to God. Seemingly she had already said that when I get it back, I'll give it to God. Miadi, for my hand, livani, for my son, la'asot pesel u'masecha, to make a image and a form. Now, these words, pesel u'masecha, reminds us of nothing less than the Ten Commandments themselves, that we are not allowed to make a pesel u'masecha. V'ata ashivenu lach, and now I will return it to you. So here she hands the money, rather than her take this money and make it and make it into a pesel u'masecha. Remember, these exact words are said in Deuteronomy 27:15. Arur ha'ish, cursed is the man asher ya'aseh pesel u'masecha, who makes a pesel u'masecha, a form and an image. To'avat Adonai Maaseh de Charash, something which is abominable to God, the work of a craftsman, and so on. So in other words, she cursed the person, and now she goes and gives it to her son. who she says is blessed to God, and tells him to make a pesel u'masecha, which is the ultimate source of a curse. A person who takes something and makes a form or an image, and then an item of worship, a human creation. So the twistedness of all this it's hard to kind of get your head around it. That she somehow thinks that this is a good thing is just astounding. It's astounding how far the people have strayed that you can have someone that thinks like this. Here she's trying to remove a curse from her son, and she tells him to do something which is very explicitly written in the Torah that is actually the source of a curse. Vayoshev es hakesef li'imo. So he gave the silver back to his mother. Vatikach imo, and then she took out of the money Mosayim Ketzel. So in the end, she didn't consecrate all of the money, just 200 pieces of silver she gave back to as she took. Vatitneu, and she gave it to Latzorev, to a smelter, a person who makes metal items. Vayaseu pesel masecha, and he made it into a silver form. Vayihi beveis Michayo, and this image was being kept in the house of Micah, this image of worship, this idol. V'ha'ish Micha, and the man Micha, lo beis Elohim, he had a house of God. So in other words, he had a house, his own little house of idol worship. Vayas ephod utrafim, and he made, in addition to this thing, this item of worship, he also made an ephod, which is some sort of apron. Utrafim, and trafim are items used in the worship of idols. Vayimale et yad echad mibanav, and he appointed one of his sons, Vayilo l'choin, who acted as a priest in his little idol worship house. Bayamim ahem, in those days, ein melech b'Yisrael, there was no king in Israel. Ish hayashar be'einav yaseh, everyone did their own thing. One of the lessons that we find repeated in Judges, and we're going to see it as we approach, is this ish hayashar be'einav yaseh. Everyone's doing their own thing because there was no king. The book of Judges seems to suggest that the primary reason why the people had sunk to such a level was because there was no centralized leadership. At least that's the impression that you get. That one is linked to the other. Those that are familiar with the progression of the entire Tanakh, of the entire Bible, will see that the kings, having a king and centralized leadership, to some degree kind of sort of solved some problems. In the days of Solomon and the days of David, certainly there were good times when the people were being led in the right direction. But then again, that split, and they couldn't hold on to a single central image, a central leader, and they ended up splitting into civil war and making two separate nations. And then eventually the kings themselves became corrupt. So a king, even though at this point in history, a king seemed like the answer to the problem, and that's the suggestion of this book, that we need a centralized leader. But we learn later that even a king is not the answer to the problem, because the king himself could be a corrupt leader as well. Vayhi na'ar mi Beit Lechem Yehuda, and there was a young man who came from the city of Bethlehem, which is in the territory of Judah. Mishpachat Yehuda, he was related and in a Judah family, presumably, although his father V'hu Levi, and he was a Levite, V'hu Garsham, and he lived there in Judah. So he was technically a Levite, so which means that his father was a descendant of Levi. However, the family had married into a family of Judah, and he lived in Judah. Now the Levites won't inherit in the land of Judah, and they therefore are dependent upon the others. So Vayelech ha'ish me'a'ir mi Beit Lechem Yehuda, he left the town of Bethlehem in Judah, looking for a place to settle down, lagur b'asher yimsa, to live in a place where he could find, because as in other times of history, the sons who don't inherit in the families, they got to wander and look for a place to go. So he did. Vayavo har Ephraim. So eventually in his wanderings, he landed in the region of Ephraim, ad beis Micha, lasos darko, and as he's on his way, he finds the house of Micah, this worship house, and he hangs out, and he figures here's a place to stay while he's looking. Vayomer lo Micha me'ayin tavo is verse 9, and Micah says to him, where are you coming from? Vayomer elav, and he says to him, Levi anochi, I am a Levite, mi Beit Lechem Yehuda, and that's where I'm coming from Bethlehem, which is in Judah. V'anochi holech lagur b'asher imtzah, I don't have a place to live yet. I'm walking around the land looking for a place to live, where I can find a place to live. Vayomer lo Micha, so Micah said to him, Micah said to him, Shavayim, why don't you stay here with me? You're a Levite, that means that you are a man of God. Stay with me, v'heyei lila avol l'kohen. You can be literally a father and a priest. You'll be a leader here. You'll be a religious leader. I got here a nice temple. I got here a nice idol. You're a nice Levi. This is perfect. V'anochi eten lach aseres kesef layamim. I'll give you 10 pieces of silver per year to live on. Ve'erech begadim. I'll give you clothes. V'mechyasecha. I'll give you food. Vayelech halevi, and the Levi went. In other words, he left his place and he settled there. Now, so just to give you a sense here, he's giving him a salary of 10 pieces of silver per year. The amount of silver he had stolen from his mother, right, was 1,100 pieces of silver. So just get a sense for how much money we were talking about. If it's a reasonable salary to give a priest, he's getting a salary, a place to stay, clothing, and food. But his salary is 10 pieces of silver per year. So he's giving him the amount of money he stole was the equivalent of 11 years worth of a salary. So it's a significant sum of money, even though he wasn't necessarily a highly paid worker, but it's still a lot. Vayol halevi l'shev es ha'ish, and the Levite agreed to stay with this man, in other words, with Micah. Vayehi hana'ar lo ke'achad mibanav, and this young man became like one of Micah's own sons. Vayemale Micha es yad halevi, and Micah appointed and placed this appointment of being the priest into the hands of this Levi. Vayehi lo hanar lekohen, and the young man became a priest there. Vayehi bebeis Micha, and he stayed in the house of Micah. Vayomer Micha, and Micah said, Ata yadati, now I know, ki yetiv Adonai li, that God will do good for me, ki hoya li halevi lekohen, because now I legitimized myself. I took an actual Levite, someone who's supposed to be serving in God's temple. He's now serving here in this temple. It's so mixed up, the way he's thinking, and it's presented so that we should see this incredible amount of corruption and confusion of the religious idea and the religious ideal that the people are supposed to live with, that a person could think that this is somehow something good. The contrast between Pesel u'Masecha, which is screamed out over and over again in the Torah as being exactly what you shouldn't do, in Micah's mind, it's okay that this should be something that he does for God. The cognitive dissonance here is exactly the point of this chapter, is to knock into our heads just how lost the people were at this time. Thank you so much. This concludes chapter 17. We'll continue reading about the saga of the Pesel Micha, the idol of Micah, which we'll continue reading in chapter 18. Looking forward to studying that together with you. Have a wonderful day.